Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Yes, I think you can. Great. So guys, as promised in the last week, today we're going to do the analysis for reading comprehension slot 1 2019 paper. Okay. So let's keep, you've already been with me for 2 weeks, so you know exactly how this class works, how the dynamics are. So ज़्यादा कुछ सोचने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. I'll show you the questions and we can get started. All right. जय श्री राम भाई. Actually, it was like a wave of Ram Bhakti. You know, everywhere you go, there's only this Bhagwa color and crazy. Everybody shouting Jai Shri Ram, Jai Shri Ram, Jai Shri Ram. It's like a festival today. Right. So, without further ado, guys, let's get started. So, as you know, I expect you to read the RC and then answer questions. But before that, what I would do is, for those of you who like to see the questions before the RC, this is the RC, okay? Tale of Aladdin. So, it must be fun to read. The RC is on 2 pages. This is the first question. All of the following serve as evidence for the character of Aladdin being based on Hana Diab except. So out of these 4, 3 things are mentioned. Author of the passage is most likely to agree with which of the following explanations the origins of the story of Aladdin. So you have to watch out for the origins. Which of the following, if true, would invalidate the inversion that the phrase flips the script refers to? Flip the script, देखेंगे कहाँ लिखा हुआ है? Which of the following is the primary reason for why storytellers are fascinated by the story of Aladdin? Which of the following does not contribute to the passage's claim about the authorship of Aladdin? So probably out of these 4, 3 would contribute to the passage's claim about the authorship of Aladdin. Alright. This is the passage. Take it away. Please read it. Read? Shall we? इतनी देर थोड़ी लगती है एक पैसेज पढ़ने में. Let's see, what does it say? So, Tale of Aladdin is the first thing. In the past, credit for telling the tale of Aladdin has often gone to Antoine Galland, the first European translator of Arabian Nights, which started as a series of translations of an incomplete manuscript of a medieval Arabic story collection. But though those tales were of medieval origin, Aladdin may be a more recent invention. Scholars have found a manuscript of the story that predates the version published in 1712 by Galland. तो हो सकता है उससे पहले से है. Who wrote in his diary that he first heard the tale from a Syrian storyteller from Aleppo named Hana Diab. Despite the fantastical elements of the story, scholars now think the main character may be actually based on a real person's real experience. Aladdin की बात हो रही है यहाँ पे, ठीक है? Though Galland never credited Diab in his published translations of the Arabian Nights stories, Diab wrote something of his own, a travelogue penned in the mid-18th century. In it, he recalls telling Galland the story of Aladdin, describes his own hard-knock upbringing and the way he marveled at the extravagance of Versailles. So, we're talking about Diab here. The descriptions he uses were very similar to the description of the lavish place that ended up in Galland's version of the Aladdin story. Therefore, author Paulo Lemos Porta believes that Aladdin might be the young Arab Maronite from Aleppo. Young Arab Maronite is Hana Diab. Aleppo से है ना ये? Marveling at the jewels and riches of Versailles. For 300 years, scholars thought that the rags to riches story of Aladdin might have been inspired by the plots of French fairy tales that came out around the same time, or that the story was invented in the 18th century period as a byproduct of French Orientalism, a fascination with stereotypical exotic Middle Eastern luxuries that was prevalent then. The idea that Diab might have based it on his own life, the experiences of a Middle Eastern man encountering the French, not vice versa, flips the script. Flips the script की बात हुई थी question में. The idea Diab might have based it on his own life, not vice versa. According to Porta, Diab was ideally placed to embody the overlapping world of East and West, blending the storytelling traditions of his homeland with his youthful observations of the wonder of 18th century France. To the scholars who study the tale, its narrative drama isn't the only reason storytellers keep finding reason to return to Aladdin. It reflects not only a history of the French in the Middle East, but also a story about Middle Easterners coming to Paris. Hana Diab was probably one such Easterner who came to Paris. And then that speaks to our world today. As Horta puts it, the day Diab told the story of Aladdin to Galland, there were riots due to food shortages during the winter and spring of 1708 and 1709. And Diab was sensitive to those people in a way that Galland is not. When you read his diary, you see this solidarity among the Arabs who were in Paris at the time. There is little in the writings of Galland that would suggest that he was capable of developing a character like Aladdin with sympathy. But Diab's memoir reveals, so what we're saying is, Galland Aladdin with sympathy, but Diab's memoir reveals a narrator adept at capturing the distinctive psychology of a young protagonist, as well as recognizing the kinds of injustices and opportunities that can transform the path of any youthful adventurer. So that's basically it. Galland ने लिखा है या Diab ने लिखा है, इसके ऊपर चर्चा हो रही है, and we're saying that Hana Diab was probably someone who was a Middle Easterner who went to Paris and was admiring the marvels there. Okay. Yes. Looking at the questions. All of the following serve as evidence for the character of Aladdin being based on Hana Diab, except so Diab's cosmopolitanism and cross-cultural experience. Yes, ये मैंने बोला था, a Middle Easterner coming to France, coming to Europe, तो ये तो होगा. Diab's humble origins and class struggles as recounted in his travelogue. Yes, that's exactly what they say, that he was more sensitive to the Arabs who were struggling, who were from the famine. They have description of the wealth of Versailles in his travelogue. Yes, he wondered. Versailles, mind you, is also in France. You might have heard of it. Treaty of Versailles हुआ था World War I में, जिसकी वजह से Hitler got agitated and then World War II happened. Versailles is Rhine Valley. This is a valley in France. They have description of the wealth of Versailles in his travelogue. Yes, that also tells us that probably it is Diab who's Aladdin itself. They have narration of the original story to Galland. Guys, the question is evidence of the character Aladdin being based on Hannah Diab. This does not serve as evidence. So, D. The author of the passage is most likely to agree with which of the following explanations for the origin of the story of Aladdin. Galland derived the story of Aladdin from Diab's travelogue, in which he recounts fascination with the wealth of Versailles. Guys, we don't know whether the story was derived from the Diab's travelogue. We're saying Diab narrated the story to Hannah, to Galland. The story of Aladdin has its origin in an undiscovered, incomplete manuscript of a medieval Arabic collection of stories. Not really. Basing it on his own life experience. Yes. Diab transmitted the story of Aladdin to Galland, who included it in Arabian Nights. That's the best answer. Because that's what the author is saying. It was not somebody else's experience, but Diab himself. Galland received the story of Aladdin from Diab, who in turn found it in an incomplete medieval manuscript. Not really. C. Which of the following, if true, would invalidate the inversion that the phrase flips the script refers to? Flip the script. Okay, flip the script. कहाँ लिखा था? So, the idea that Diab might have based it on his own life, the experience of a Middle Eastern man encountering friends and not vice versa, flips the script. So, what we're saying, script कब flip होती है? जब हम बोलते हैं कि Diab ने अपनी life के ऊपर बेस किया था उसको सबको, ठीक है? अब हमसे पूछा जा रहा है which of the following if true would invalidate the inversion. So A says Diab's travelogue described the affluence of the French city of Bordeaux instead of Versailles. Far-fetched Bordeaux तब भी invalidate नहीं कर रहा है आपको. B says the French fairy tales of the 18th century did not have rags to riches plot lines like that of the tale of Aladdin. Too general a statement. The description of opulence in Hannah Diab's and Antoine Galland's narratives bore no resemblance to each other. Yes. No resemblance to each other. मतलब दोनों की स्टोरीज अलग अलग थी. अगर एक सिमिलर होते तो फ्लिप द स्क्रिप्ट हो सकता था. नो रिजेम्बलेंस मतलब हम इनवैलिडेट कर रहे हैं. बट सिंह स्क्रिप्ट फ्लिप नहीं हुई थी. Galland acknowledged in the published translations of Arabian Nights that he heard the story of Aladdin from Diab. So, C. Which of the following is the primary reason for why storytellers are still fascinated by the story of Aladdin? ये तो आसान है. The traveler's experience that inspired the story of Aladdin resonates even today. Relatable है अभी भी. A should be the right answer. B says the tale of Aladdin documents the history of Europe and Middle East. That's not the reason. The archetype of rags to riches story of Aladdin makes it popular even today. Not really the rags to riches. It's about the relativity. The story of Aladdin is evidence for the 18th century French, or not really. Simple answer, A. Which of the following does not contribute to the passage's claim about the authorship of Aladdin? The narrative sensibility of Diab's travelogue, ये तो contribute करता है. The depiction of the affluence of Versailles in Diab's travelogue, yes, ये भी बोलता है कि author वही होगा उसका. Diab. Galland's acknowledgement of Diab in his diary, yeah, that also tells us about the authorship. The storyline of many French fairy tales of the 18th century. Many French, irrelevant. Hence, D is the answer because it does not contribute to the passage's claim about the authorship. Are we clear with this passage? Vidushi, which question? Which question, Vidushi? क्वेश्चन पढ़ो. क्वेश्चन है प्राइमरी रीजन फॉर व्हाई स्टोरी टेलर्स आर फैसिनेटेड बाय द स्टोरी ऑफ अलादीन. व्हाई आर स्टोरी टेलर्स फैसिनेटेड बाय द स्टोरी ऑफ अलादीन? बिकॉज इट इज स्टिल रेलिवेंट टुडे. मिडिल ईस्ट और फ्रेंच की कहां से बात आ गई यार? इसमें क्या विदुषी? Sri Pujita, I think you joined the class late. I had shown you the questions before I even gave you the passage. So I give you the questions beforehand and then I show you the passage. Vidushi, you have to be a little more clear with your questions, bache. I'm not able to relate to what you're asking me. श्री पूजिता, क्वेश्चंस का स्क्रीनशॉट लेना होता है, इसीलिए तो पहले दिखाए जाते हैं. नहीं, ऐसा कुछ नहीं दिया है. Yashasvi, see what happens is the idea that Diab might have based it on his own life, the experience of a Middle Eastern man encountering the French, not vice versa, flips the script. हम फ्लिप द स्क्रिप्ट ऐसे बोल रहे थे कि हम सोच रहे थे कि एक मिडिल ईस्ट मैन का जो मिडिल ईस्ट मैन की ही स्टोरी है और ये उसने लिखी है, क्या नाम है, हाना, सॉरी, एंटोन गैलन ने. लेकिन हम बोल रहे हैं कि नहीं, उसने नहीं लिखी, ये दियाब की अपनी स्टोरी है, दियाब की अपनी स्टोरी है, इसलिए ये फ्लिप द स्क्रिप्ट हो गया. मतलब जो हम मान रहे थे उसका उल्टा हो गया है. अब इसको हम बोल रहे हैं इनवैलिडेट द इन्वर्जन दैट द फ्रेज फ्लिप द स्क्रिप्ट रेफर्स टू. इनवैलिडेट द इन्वर्जन. इन्वर्जन था कि ये दियाब के एक्सपीरियंसेस हैं, नॉट सॉरी क्या नाम था, गैलन के. ठीक है. Description of opulence in Hannah Diab's and Antoine Gallen's narratives bore no resemblance to each other. Opulence मतलब richness. तो जो हाना दियाब ने बोला और जो एंटोइन गैलन ने बोला उसमें बहुत ज़्यादा फर्क था. अगर फर्क नहीं होता तो हम मान सकते थे कि गैलन was inspired by दियाब story, but this tells us no, she wasn't. कहाँ बोला था, आप ही बताओ मुझे. बताइए पूजिता जी. हाँ है लास्ट पैरा, पढ़ो, बताओ मुझे कौन सा पार्ट. The scholars who study the tale, its narrative drama, isn't the only reason storytellers keep finding reason to return to Aladdin. सिर्फ narrative drama ही नहीं है. There is more to the narrative drama that they keep reading Aladdin. It reflects not only a history of the French and Middle East, but also Middle Easterns coming to Paris, and that speaks to our world today. मतलब वो आज भी रेलेवेंट है, आज भी ऐसा ही होता है. मिडिल ईस्ट से लोग आते हैं तो उनको ये फैसिनेटिंग ही लगता है. Are we clear, Doshi? पूजिता, आई विल हैव टू डिसएग्री. आई एम गिविंग यू इनफ टाइम. मैं बहुत धीरे चल रहा हूँ, आधे घंटे में एक पैसेज किया हमने. सो आई विल शो यू द क्वेश्चंस फर्स्ट. यू कैन टेक अ स्क्रीनशॉट फॉर द क्वेश्चंस and then I'll go through the passage once, but I can't give you time to answer the questions again. You read the passage quickly and you answer the question based on them. It speaks to our world today. Today का मतलब क्या हुआ? It is still relevant. लास्ट वाला ऑप्शन कैसे हो गया बताइए? पूजिता जी बताइए, कहाँ कंफ्यूजन है? बोलो बोलो. Because it says the tale of Aladdin documents the history of Europe and Middle East. वो कोई document नहीं कर रहा है. It's not documenting the history of Europe and Middle East. It simply says that Aladdin is a story about a Middle Easterner coming to Europe, और वो वहाँ पे जाके उसको fascination हो रहा है. वही चीज़ अभी भी होती है. Middle Easterners still come to Europe, उनको वैसे ही fascination होता है. So it resonates today as well. It does not document the history, guys. कहाँ document करा है history? इसमें बोला है, but also a story about it reflects not only on the history of French in the Middle East. Reflects on the history. Does not document the history. Reflects on the history. Documents the history are two separate things. Document history मतलब it's down in the books. Reflects history मतलब ऐसा पहले भी हो रहा था और अभी भी होता है. No problem. No problem, Pujita. Mandeep, could you understand this? This is the next passage, choice fatigue. Two pages in the passage. This is the first question. Which of the following hypothetical statements would add the least depth to the author's prediction of the fate of startups offering few product options? Few product options का मतलब जो बहुत कम product options दे रहे हैं. इनमें से कौन सा हाइपोथेटिकल स्टेटमेंट डेप्थ प्रोवाइड करेगा ऑथर के प्रिडिक्शन का? सो पॉसिबली ऑथर ने प्रिडिक्ट किया है पैसेज में कहीं ना कहीं अबाउट द फेट ऑफ स्टार्टअप्स ऑफरिंग फ्यू प्रोडक्ट्स. हमको बताना है विच वुड एट द लीस्ट डेप्थ, स्ट्रेंथन कम सबसे कम करेगा. Which one of the following best sums up the overall purpose of the examples of Casper and Glossier in the passage? So look out for the options of Casper and Glossier and figure out why is the author giving those options. A new food brand plans to launch a series of products in the American market. Which of the following product plans is most likely to be supported by the author of the passage? Okay, इसके लिए आपको समझना पड़ेगा author का perspective. All of the following if true would weaken the author's claim except. तो author का जो claim है उसको इन चार में से out of these four, three options will weaken that claim. ठीक है, one will not, except पूछा है. You have to figure out which one will not weaken. All of the following can be inferred about consumer behavior. Okay, author की बात नहीं हो रही है, consumer behavior की बात हो रही है. Except, so out of these four, three can be inferred about the consumer behavior, one cannot. Let's read the passage. Conjure to appear मतलब to appear magically, जैसे हम बोलते हैं ना कि conjure up spirits. बचपन में बोलते हैं ना भूत बुलाएंगे, स्टार बना के वो लोग कैंडल वगैरह जला के. So that's what conjuring means. चार मिनट, 4 से 5 मिनट, इससे ज़्यादा क्या टाइम लगना चाहिए. मैं तो काफ़ी टाइम दे देता हूँ आपको. यस आदित्य, करेक्ट. Gungun, for this you will have to get in touch with the counselor who's in touch with you. Done? Next slide नहीं, पहले passage देखते हैं. Choice fatigue. Fatigue is when you get tired of something, okay? Contemporary internet shopping conjures a perfect storm of choice anxiety. बहुत सारी चीज choice, इतनी सारी choice हो जाती है कि आपको anxiety हो जाती है. Research has consistently held that people who are presented with a few options make better, easier decisions than those presented with many. तो अगर कम options हैं तो आप better choice कर सकते हैं. Helping consumers figure out what to buy amid an endless sea of choice online has become a cottage industry unto itself. Many brands and retailers now wield marketing buzzwords such as curation, differentiation, and discovery as they attempt to sell an assortment of stuff targeted to their ideal customer. Companies find such shoppers through the data gold mine of digital advertising, which can catalog people by gender, income level, personal interest, and more. ये तो आपने भी देखा होगा, आपके साथ भी होता होगा. You click on one thing and it keeps showing you options related to it. Yeah. Since Americans have lost the ability to sort through the sheer volume of the consumer choices available to them, a ghost now has to be in the retail machine. Whether it's an algorithm, an influencer, or some snazzy ad tech to help a product follow you around the internet. Indeed, choice fatigue is one reason so many people gravitate towards lifestyle influencers on Instagram, the relentlessly chic young moms and perpetually vacationing 20-somethings who present an aspirational worldview and then recommend the products and services that help achieve it. I'm pretty sure you can relate to what is being stated here. For a relatively new class of consumer product startups, there's another method entirely. Instead of making sense of a sea of existing stuff, these companies claim to disrupt stuff as Americans know it. Casper mattresses, Glossier makeup, Away suitcases, and many other have sprouted up to offer consumers freedom from choice. The companies have a few aesthetically pleasing and supposedly highly functional options, usually at mid-range prices. They're selling nice things, but maybe more importantly, they're selling a confidence in those things and an ability to opt out of the stuff rat race. $1,000 mattresses and $300 suitcases might solve choice anxiety for a certain tier of consumer, but the companies that sell them, along with those that attempt to massage the larger stuff economy into something navigable, are still just working within a consumer market that's broken in systemic ways. The presence of so much stuff in America might be more valuable if it were more evenly distributed, but stuff's creators tend to focus their energy on those who already have plenty. As options have expanded for people with disposable income, the opportunity to buy even basic things such as fresh fruit or quality diapers has contracted for much of America's lower class क्योंकि target higher segment को किया जा रहा है. For startups that promise accessible simplicity, their very structure still might eventually push them toward overwhelming variety. Most of these companies are based on hundreds of millions of dollars of venture capital, and the investors of which tend to expect a steep growth rate that can't be achieved by selling one great mattress or one great sneaker. Casper has expanded into bedroom furniture and bed linens. Glossier, after years of marketing itself as no makeup that requires little skill to apply, recently launched a full line of glittering colors cosmetics. There may be no way to opt out of stuff by buying into the right thing. So the passage talks about the paradox of choice. It says कि अगर ज़्यादा choice है तो customers को choose करना मुश्किल हो जाता है. फिर बोलता है कि अब जो stuff बन रहा है that is being targeted on audience who already have a lot of money, so lower caste people tend to miss out. Last sentence of the last paragraph of this RC. There may be no way of opt out of stuff by buying into the new market. So if you buy into the new market, buy into the right thing, you still may not be able to opt out of it. यही है बस. Which of the following hypothetical statements would add the least depth to the author's prediction of the fate of startups offering few product options? तो यहाँ पे देखो, few product options. Least depth. Okay, let's read the options. An exponential surge in their sales enables startups to meet their desired profit goals without expanding their product catalog. With the motive of promoting certain rival companies, the government decides to double the tax rates for these startups. With Casper and Glossier venturing into new product ranges, their regular customers start losing trust in the company and their products. ठीक है. Let's first take a look at what is the prediction of the fate of startups offering few product options. Let's go to this page. Okay. कहाँ लिखा है ये स्टार्टअप्स वाले बात? अनएबल टू लोकेट इट. आपको ज़्यादा दिख रहा होगा. हाँ, sorry. For startups that promise accessible simplicity, their very structure still might eventually push them towards overwhelming variety. हम बोल रहे हैं कि वो बहुत ज़्यादा वैरायटी प्रोड्यूस करना देना शुरू कर देंगे. ठीक है. This is what the author predict. Their very structure still might eventually push them toward overwhelming variety. So they'll offer a variety of things. I think A is the best answer. A says an exponential surge in their sales enables startups to meet their desired profit goals without expanding their product catalog. मतलब उनको variety offer नहीं करनी पड़ेगी. Rival companies tax rate से कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा. Casper and Glossier venturing into new product ranges. Regular customers start losing trust. इससे भी कुछ नहीं होएगा. Startups with few product options have no exception to American consumer markets. No, that is also not the right answer. Which of the following best sums up the overall purpose of the examples of Casper and Glossier in the passage? अगर आपको याद हो तो Casper और Glossier का उन्होंने एग्जाम्पल दिया था कि Casper has transformed into other things. They are increasing the purchasing power of poor amazing. No, they are not increasing the purchasing power. They are exceptions to a dominant trend in the consumer markets. No, they are not exceptions either. They are facilitating a uniform distribution of commodities in the market. Absolutely not. In fact, they are losing out on the lower segment people. They might transform into what they were exceptions to. जो वो नहीं बनना चाहते थे वो ही बन गए. फॉर एग्जाम्पल उसमें दिया था ग्लॉसियर में उसने नो मेकअप बोला था एंड टुवर्ड्स द एंड इट स्टार्टेड सेलिंग ग्लिटर. राइट. तो जो वो नहीं बनना चाहते थे एग्जैक्टली वो ही बन गए. A new food brand plans to launch a series of products in the American market. Which of the following product plans is most likely to be supported by the author of the passage? Supported by the author of the passage. Author क्या suggest करेगा? मतलब author को क्या चाहिए? Author को क्या बोल रहा है? महंगी चीजें बेचो और बहुत सारी वैरायटी भेजो कि सस्ता बेचो और कम वैरायटी दो, क्योंकि कम वैरायटी है तो चॉइस आसान होगा. बताइए आंसर. Yes. A range of 25 नहीं 10 products priced between $5 and $5, not 10 and 25. सस्ता दो, कम रेंज दो. That's what the author wants. Least depth in the sense means weakens. Predictions कौन सा statement weaken करता है prediction? Next, all the following if true weaken the author's claim except. Guys, these are pretty much critical reasoning questions. Okay, मैंने आपको बोला था critical reasoning directly नहीं पूछा जाता है, but RC में CR चलता है. Weaken the author's claim. Okay, let's see. Option A says product options increase market competition, bringing down the price of commodities, which in turn increased purchasing power of the poor. हाँ, product options increase market competition, increase purchasing power of the poor. This is what the author does not agree with. So this is weakening the author's claim. A is weakening the author's claim. B says the annual sales growth of companies with fewer product options were higher than that of companies which curated their products for target consumers. Guys, if you see, this is actually strengthening what the author is saying. वो बोल रहा है fewer product options. The author is actually in favor of fewer product options. So B looks like a good answer. Let's take a look at C. क्योंकि हमें question पूछा है except, okay? C says the annual sale of companies that hired lifestyle influencers on Instagram for marketing their products were 40% less than those that did not. Annual sale of companies that hired lifestyle influencers on Instagram 40% लेस, ये भी वीकेंड कर रहा है क्योंकि ऑथर ने इसमें पैसेज में बोला है कि people are influenced by Instagrammers and so on and so forth. The empowerment felt by purchasers in buying a commodity were directly proportional to the number of options they could choose from. ये भी बोला गया है, ऑथर बोल रहा है अमीर लोगों के लिए आसान है ये. So A, C, D weaken the author's claim except B. B is actually strengthening. Based on the passage, all of the following can be inferred about consumer behavior except that too many options have made it difficult for consumers to trust products. Yes, that is true. Consumers are susceptible to marketing images they see on social media. That is also true. Having too many product options can be overwhelming for consumers. That is also true. Consumers tend to prefer products by startups over those by established companies. ऐसा कुछ नहीं दिया हुआ है. So D. In the first question, it says least depth to the author's prediction of the fate of startups. ऑथर क्या प्रेडिक्ट कर रहा है फेट ऑफ स्टार्टअप्स के लिए? ऑथर ने प्रेडिक्ट करा है कि उनको बहुत सारी चॉइस देनी पड़ेगी क्योंकि दैट्स हाउ थिंग्स वर्क राइट नाउ. ऑप्शन ए सेज an exponential surge in their sales enables startups to meet their desired profit goals without expanding their product catalog. मतलब उनको वैरायटी नहीं देनी पड़ेगी. This is actually weakening the author's prediction about the startups. Are we clear with this? They are increasing the purchasing power of poor Americans. Purchasing power increase कर रहे हैं मतलब जो गरीब लोग हैं वो ज्यादा चीजें खरीद सकते हैं. Susceptible? पूजिता पहले क्वेश्चन तो बताओ कौन सा? Which question are we talking about, Pujita? $1,000 mattresses and $300 suitcases might solve choice anxiety for certain tier consumers, but the companies that sell them, along with those that attempt to massage the larger stuff economy into something navigable, are still just working within a consumer market that's broken in systemic ways. $1,000 mattresses and $300 suitcases, ये सब लोग अफोर्ड नहीं कर सकते ना. सब लोग अफोर्ड नहीं कर सकते. सर्टन टीयर ऑफ कंज्यूमर अफोर्ड कर सकते हैं. और हम मसाज कर रहे हैं, मसाज द लार्जर स्टफ इकोनॉमी इनटू समथिंग नेविगेबल. मतलब जो बहुत ज्यादा बड़ी चीजों की इकोनॉमी है उसको आप नेविगेबल बना रहे हो. मतलब यू कैन वर्क अराउंड इट. आर स्टिल जस्ट वर्किंग विद इन अ कंज्यूमर मार्केट दैट्स ब्रोकन इन सिस्टेमिक वेज. Within a consumer market. Which consumer market? That of rich people with a lot of purchasing power. हाँ जी. First, second, third. Which question, Pujita? Least depth means something which does not strengthen. Okay, moving on. Emperor penguins. Now we're talking about emperor penguins. Okay. दो पेज पे passage है. This is the first question. In the last sentence of paragraph 3, slightly warmer air and slightly colder temperature refer to dash and dash respectively. The last sentence में ध्यान देना. Which of the following best explains the purpose of the word paradoxically as used by the author? All of the following, if true, would negate the findings of the study reporting in the passage. So, out of these four, 3 would negate the study of the report. जो नहीं करता है वो आंसर होगा. Which of the following can be responsible for emperor penguins losing body heat? Consumer behavior wala, हाँ. Consumers are susceptible to marketing images they see on social media. Yes, they are. ये रहा. They are susceptible. I hope this is clear now. डायरेक्टली नहीं बोला है लेकिन ससेप्टेबल तो है, फर्क तो पड़ रहा है. ऑल्सो डायरेक्टली नहीं बोला जाएगा. द क्वेश्चन इज विच कैन बी इन्फर्ड. तो डायरेक्टली तो कुछ बोला ही नहीं होगा. Shall we? Yes? प्लमेज होता है जो उनके फेदर्स होते हैं. एम्परर पेंगुइन्स के बारे में बात हो रही है. बहुत सिंपल पैसेज था ये. Scientists recently discovered that emperor penguins, one of Antarctica's most celebrated species, employ a particularly unusual technique for surviving the daily chill. As detailed in an article published today in the journal Biology Letters, the birds minimize heat loss by keeping the outer surface of the plumage below the temperature of the surrounding air. At the same time, the penguin's thick plumage insulates their body and keeps it toasty. The researchers analyzed thermographic images taken over roughly a month during June 2008. During that period, the average air temperature was 0.32 degrees Fahrenheit. At the same time, the majority of the plumage covering the penguin's body was even colder. The surface of the warmest body part, their feet, was an average 1.76 degrees Fahrenheit. But the plumage on their heads, chests, and backs were minus 1.84, minus 7.24, minus 9.76 degrees Fahrenheit, respectively. Overall, nearly the outer surface of the penguin's bodies were below freezing at all times except for their eyes and beaks. The scientists also used a computer simulation to determine how much heat was lost or gained from each part of the body and discovered that by keeping their outer surface below air temperature, the birds might paradoxically be able to draw very slight amounts of heat from the air around them. Okay. The key to that trick is the difference between two different types of heat transfer, radiation and convection. थोड़ी सी फिजिक्स लगी है इसमें. अगर उनका टेम्परेचर कम होगा बॉडी का तो उनको बॉडी वो हीट ले सकते हैं बाहर की टेम्परेचर से. अगर उनका टेम्परेचर जैसे इफ आवर बॉडी टेम्परेचर इज कोल्ड, वी विल नॉट फील कोल्ड. आवर बॉडी टेम्परेचर इज वार्म, दैट्स व्हाई बाहर से जो हवा लगती है दैट्स व्हाट मेक्स अस कोल्ड. The penguins do lose internal body heat to the surrounding air through thermal radiation, just as our bodies do on a cold day. Because their bodies, but not surface plumage, are warmer than the surrounding air, heat gradually radiates outward over time, moving from a warmer material to a colder one. जो कि मैंने आपको बताया, warmer material to colder material body heat radiate होती है. ठीक है. To maintain body temperature while losing heat, penguins, like all warm-blooded animals, rely on the metabolism of food. The penguins, though, have an additional strategy. Since their outer plumage is even colder than the air, the simulation showed that they might gain back a little bit of heat through thermal convection, the transfer of heat via the movement of fluid, in this case the air. As the cold Antarctica air cycles around their bodies, slightly warmer air comes in contact with the plumage and donates minute amount of heat back to the penguins, then cycles away at slightly colder temperature. Exactly, जो मैंने आपको बताया था. Most of this heat, the researchers note, probably doesn't make it all the way through the plumage and back to the penguin bodies, but it could make a slight difference. At the very least, the method by which a penguin's plumage wicks heat from the bitterly cold air that surrounds it helps to cancel out some of the heat that's radiating from its interior. हाँ ठीक है. And given the emperor's unusually demanding breeding cycle, every bit of warmth counts. Since penguins trek as far as 75 miles to the coast to breed, and male penguins don't eat anything during the incubation period of 64 days. Conserving calories by giving up as little heat as possible is absolutely crucial. Alright, let's move to the questions directly. I think it's a simple passage. मुझे simple लगा. बाकी it would depend from person to person. In the last sentence of the paragraph, slightly warmer air and a slightly colder temperature refer to Slightly colder temperature, slightly warmer air. Okay. आंसर इजी आंसर है अगर आपको ये समझ में आ गया. व्हाट डज स्लाइटली वार्मर एयर रेफर टू? स्लाइटली वार्मर एयर तो वो हवा है जो अंटार्कटिका में है. एंड स्लाइटली बैक टू द पेंगुइन्स देन साइकल्स बैक अवे एट स्लाइटली कोल्डर टेम्परेचर्स. Then cycles away at slightly colder temperature. Why cycles away? So it comes into contact with penguins. जो वार्मर एयर है वो उसको अपना हीट देती है एंड देन साइकल्स अवे एट स्लाइटली कोल्डर टेम्परेचर. सो इट्स दिस रेफर्स टू एयर. हाँ ओके. आंसर द एयर इनसाइड पेंगुइन बॉडी केप्ट वार्म. नहीं, इट्स नॉट द एयर इनसाइड पेंगुइन बॉडी, सो आई कैन एलिमिनेट ए यहीं पे. The cold Antarctic air which becomes warmer because of the heat radiated out from penguins' bodies. No, it does not become warmer because of the heat radiated. In fact, वो अपनी air में से थोड़ी warmth penguin को दे देती है. The air trapped in the plumage. No, we're not talking about the air trapped in the plumage. The cold Antarctic air whose temperature is higher than that of the plumage, warmer air, and the fall in temperature of the Antarctic air after it has transmitted some heat to the plumage. Hence, D. Which of the following best explains the purpose of the word paradoxically as used by the author? Paradoxically, by keeping their outer surface below temperature air, the birds paradoxically able to draw very slight amount of heat. तो basically वो क्या कर रहे हैं? वो अपनी बॉडी को ठंडा रख के बाहर से गर्मी ले रहे हैं. ठीक है, दैट्स द पैराडॉक्स. मतलब अपनी बॉडी को ठंडा करोगे तो आपको ठंड लगनी चाहिए. Keeping the body colder helps penguins keep their plumage warmer. No. Keeping a part of the body colder helps penguins keep their bodies warmer. Yes, this is the paradox. Heat gain through radiation happens despite the heat loss through convection. Heat loss through radiation happens despite the heat gain through convection. No, not relevant. All of the following, if true, would negate the findings of the study reported in the passage, except all of them would negate the findings of the study. The penguins' plumage were made of material that did not allow any heat transfer through convection or radiation. ऐसा तो हो ही नहीं सकता. अगर ऐसा होता, if they did not allow heat transmission, they would not have to keep their wings colder. So A is negating. Yes. The average air temperature recorded during the month of June 2008 were 10 degrees Fahrenheit. No, it was something around 0 degrees. So ये भी negate कर रहा है. The temperature of the plumage of the penguin's chest and backs were found to be 1.84. This is also negating. It was minus. ये minus नहीं लिखा हुआ. D. The average temperature of the feet of penguins in the month of 2008 would found to be 2.76 degrees Fahrenheit. Yes, D is the best answer. It does not negate the findings. Which of the following can be responsible for emperor penguins losing body heat? Clearly, reproduction process. I hope we're clear with this. Okay. Let's move to the next passage. The passage is about folk music. It's a lengthy passage. This is the first question. The author says that folk may often appear a cozy fossilized form because, okay, all of the following are causes for plurality and diversity within the British folk tradition except, मतलब इन चार में से तीन tell us that why there is plurality and diversity within the British folk tradition. At a conference on folk forms, the author of the passage is likely to agree with which of the following views? Author इनमें से किसके साथ least likely agree करेगा? It's very very important to read the question. Okay, question में से हो गया तो आंसर गलत हो जाएगा. Can someone please explain the last question? The primary purpose of the reference to William Morris and his floral prints is to show. विलियम मॉरिस और उसके फ्लोरल प्रिंट्स को की बात क्यों करी है, पर्पस क्या है उसका? Which of the following statements about folk revivalism of the 1940s and 1960s cannot be inferred from the passage? तो मतलब तीन तो इन्फर कर सकते हैं, एक इन्फर नहीं कर सकते. All right. Let's read the passage. विदुषी लास्ट वाला पूछा है, which of the following can be responsible for the emperor penguins losing body heat? फूड मेटाबॉलिज्म से बॉडी हीट तो लूज नहीं करेंगे. रिप्रोडक्शन प्रोसेस की वजह से बॉडी हीट लूज कर सकते हैं क्योंकि वहां एनर्जी यूज होगी. प्लमेज तो उनकी है ऐसे कि वो बॉडी हीट लूज नहीं करते. थर्मल कन्वेक्शन, थर्मल कन्वेक्शन इज नॉट बिकॉज दे लूज बॉडी हीट. इनफैक्ट थर्मल कन्वेक्शन की वजह से वो बॉडी हीट गेन करते हैं क्योंकि उनकी बॉडी ठंडी होती है. द एयर अराउंड देम इज वार्मर देन द बॉडी एंड द एयर गिव्स सम वार्मथ टू देम, सो दे डोंट लूज बॉडी हीट थ्रू कन्वेक्शन. No, plumage is cold, so body heat is not lost to the plumage. In fact, the plumage is colder than the air around them. So the plumage, in fact, gains heat from the air around them. No, the passage does not say that, Vidushi. पैसेज ने सीधा सीधा ये बोला है कि कन्वेक्शन होगा तो जो ठंडी जो गर्म जगह होगी वहाँ से हीट जाएगी ठंडी जगह पे, इसलिए वो अपना प्लमेज इतना ठंडा रखते हैं कि नॉर्मल एयर से भी वो हीट ले लेते हैं क्योंकि गर्म होती है नॉर्मल एयर उनके प्लमेज से ज़्यादा. सीधा सीधा इतना ही फंडा है. पैराडॉक्स इज कॉन्ट्राडिक्टरी, सेल्फ कॉन्ट्राडिक्टरी। जैसे वो अपने आप को गर्म रखने के लिए ठंडा रखते हैं। दिस इज अ पैराडॉक्स। पैराडॉक्स होता है सेल्फ कॉन्ट्राडिक्टरी आइडिया, मतलब जो फॉर एग्जाम्पल पैराडॉक्स हो जाएगा कि आप अपने आप को गर्म रखने के लिए अपने आप को ठंडा रख रहे हो। Don't worry about the passage, try and answer the questions. Move to the next page. पैसेज समझने के नंबर नहीं है, क्वेश्चन आंसर करने के हैं। Shall we move to the next page? विदुषी, आप कहना क्या चाह रहे हो? कौन सा वाला क्वेश्चन डिस्कस करना चाह रहे हो आप? इतना मुश्किल तो था नहीं लास्ट क्वेश्चन जितना हम डिस्कस कर रहे हैं उसको। फिर भी कुछ कंफ्यूजन है तो पूछ लीजिए, आई विल ट्राई एंड सॉर्ट इट आउट। I'll get you when you start studying RCs, okay? अभी तो हम सिर्फ previous years papers कर रहे हैं. RC की क्लास लूंगा प्रॉपर, तो मैं समझाऊंगा आपको कैसे करते हैं RC, क्या नहीं करते, क्या करते हैं. Free of the taint of manufacture, that phrase in particular is heavily loaded with the ideology of what the Victorian socialist William Morris calls the anti-scrape or an anti-capitalist conservationism that solaced itself with the vision of pre-industrial golden age. Free of taint manufacture मतलब किसी भी चीज मैन्युफैक्चर कर रहे हो तो आप उसमें कुछ भी गलत नहीं कर रहे. In Britain, folk may often appear a cozy, fossilized form, but when you look at more closely, the idea of folk who has the right to sing it, dance it, invoke it, collect it, belongs to it or appropriate it for cultural or political or cultural ends has always been contested territory. In our own time, though, the word folk has achieved the rare distinction of occupying fashionable and unfashionable status simultaneously. Just as the effusive floral prints of the radical William Morris now cover genteel sofas, so the revolutionary intentions of many folk historians and revivalists have led music that is commonly regarded as parochial and conservative. Parochial hota hai insular, not open. And yet, as newspaper columns periodically rejoice, folk is hip again, influencing artists, clothing and furniture designers, celebrated at music festivals, award ceremonies and on TV, reissued on countless record labels. Folk is a sonic shabby chic, containing elements of the uncanny and eerie as well as an antique veneer. Veneer hota hai shine. A whiff of Britain's heathen dark ages. The very obscurity and anonymity of folk music's origins open up space for rampant imaginative fancies. तो बेसिकली हम बोल रहे हैं कि फोक को आप बोलते हो कंजर्वेटिव है, पुराना है, ओल्ड स्कूल है, बट नई जगह पे भी वो यूज होता है. ठीक है, फेस्टिवल्स में यूज होता है, अवार्ड सेरेमनी, सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ. Cecil Sharp, who wrote about this subject, believed that folk songs existed in constant transformation, a living example of an art form in perpetual state of renewal. One man sings a song and then others sing it after him, changing what they do not like, is the most concise summary of his conclusions on its origins. He compared each rendition of a ballad to an acorn falling from an oak tree. Every subsequent iteration sows the song anew. जो आप rendition मतलब singing it again, okay? But there is tension in newness. In the late 1960s, purists were suspicious of folk songs recast in rock idioms. Electrification, however, comes in many forms. For the early 20th century, composers such as Vaughan Williams and Host, there were thunderbolts of inspiration from Oriental mysticism, angular modernism, and the body blow of the First World War, as well as input from the rediscovered folk tradition itself. तो यहाँ पे हम बात कर रहे हैं folk के rendition की, और हम बोल रहे हैं folk songs को rock songs या electric songs भी बना देते हैं. For the second wave of folk revivalists, such as Evan McCall and Al Lloyd, starting in the 40s, the vital spark was communism's dream idea of post-revolutionary New Jerusalem. For their younger successors in the 60s, who thronged the folk clubs set up by the old guard, the lyrical freedom of Dylan is Bob Dylan, बहुत famous folk singer है, and the unchained melodies of psychedelia created the conditions of folk rock's own golden age, a brief Indian summer that lasted for about 1969 to 1979. आपने सुना होगा अगर वुडस्टॉक फेस्टिवल होता था, यहाँ पे जिमी हेंड्रिक्स, जिमी पेज और बहुत बड़े बड़े आर्टिस्ट आते थे. वुडस्टॉक 69 was one of the most epic festivals ever. 4 decades on, even that progressive period has become just one more era ripe for fashionable emulation and pastiche. The idea of a folk tradition being exclusively confined to oral transmission has become a much looser, less severely guarded concept. Recorded music and television for today's metropolitan generation are where the equivalent of focal memories are seeded. Okay. Now, बहुत सारे वर्ड्स ऐसे होंगे जिसको आपको समझ नहीं आए होंगे, कोई बात नहीं. अभी हम कोशिश करेंगे इसके क्वेश्चन अटेम्प्ट करने की, जस्ट एज इफ वी वर अटेम्प्टिंग दिस इन द एग्जाम. ओके. नाउ right. The author says that folk may appear a cozy fossilized form. Cozy fossilized form मतलब बहुत पुराना है और हम कंफर्टेबल हैं उसके साथ. Fossilized is very very old. Nostalgic, cozy, nostalgic, fossilized, pre-industrial past. So A looks the best answer. It has been arrogated for various political and cultural purposes. तो cozy कैसे हुआ, fossilized कैसे हुआ? Folk is like a sonic sonic shabby chick with an antique veneer? No. The notion of folk has led to several debates and disagreements. कोजी सिर्फ ए ही पॉइंट आउट कर रहा है. Next, all of the following are causes for plurality and diversity within the British folk tradition, except the fluidity of folk forms owning the history of oral mode of transmission. ठीक है, तो ये चेंज होता रहता है. यहाँ से मैंने गाया, किसी और ने गाया, तो वो डाइवर्स होता गया. एक ही गाने को अलग अलग तरीके से गा दिया. बी बोलता है पैराडॉक्सिकली folk forms are both popular and unpopular. Okay, it does not tell us about the plurality and diversity. Let's talk about C. British folk forms can be traced to the remote past of the country. Yes, they can be traced to the remote past of the country. तो तब से वो चलता आ रहा है, इसलिए प्लूरैलिटी और डाइवर्सिटी हो गई. जितना पुराना होगा उतना ज़्यादा डाइवर्स हो जाएगा. That British folk continues to have traces of pagan influence from the Dark Ages. Pagan is devil worship. Okay, यहाँ पे कहीं भी नहीं दिया हुआ. British folk continues to have traces of pagan influence from the Dark Ages. Yes, Dark Ages का traditional वो influence भी है और नया influence भी है. So the only option which makes sense is B. Folk forms are both popular and unpopular. अच्छा, ये इससे हमें ये नहीं पता है कि plurality और diversity क्यों आती है. Fluidity की वजह से पता चल रहा है, पुराना है इसलिए पता चल रहा है. Traces of pagan influence मतलब dark notes भी हैं उसमें और positive notes भी हैं, and that's why plurality and diversity. At a conference on folk forms, the author of the passage is least likely to agree with which one of the following views? The power of folk resides in contradictory ability to influence and be influenced by the present while remaining rooted in the past. Yes, ये लिखा हुआ है. Power of folk is ability to influence and be influenced. वो influence करता भी है और influence होता भी है. तो author will agree with this. Folk forms, despite their archaic is very old. Archaic origins remain intellectually relevant in contemporary times. ये भी बोला है उसने. हम बोलते हैं कि पुराना है, कंजर्वेटिव है, लेकिन हम उसको अभी भी यूज करते हैं. सी बोलता है folk forms in their ability to constantly adapt to the changing world exhibit an unusual poise and homogeneity with each change. homogeneity with each change मतलब वो वैसा ही रहता है, चेंज नहीं होता. अभी इससे पहले वाले पैसेज में बात कर रही थी that folk songs keep changing with time, right? So option C is something that the author will not agree with. Should be the best answer. D बोल रहा है the plurality and democratizing impulse of folk forms emanate from the improvisation that its practitioners bring to it. This is something that the author will agree with. C is something that the author will not agree with. कौन सा क्वेश्चन समझ नहीं आया गुनगुन? Which one, Gungun? You have to be more specific. You have to tell me about the question number and the option. The primary purpose of the reference to William Morris and his floral prints is to show that जो उसमें दिया था ना, हम उसको बोलते थे फ्लोरल प्रिंट्स हैं, पुराने हो गए, लेकिन अभी भी वो सोफाज वगैरह में आ रहे हैं. वैसे ही रॉक को हम बोलते हैं पुराना हो गया है, लेकिन अभी भी यूज हो रहा है. Yeah. एफ्यूसिव फ्लोरल प्रिंट पुराने वाले थे, लेकिन वो अभी भी यूज हो रहे हैं. रिवाइवलिस्ट मतलब जो दोबारा आ रहा है. म्यूजिक कॉमनली रिगार्डेड एज पैरोकियल एंड कंजर्वेटिव, एंड येट न्यूज़पेपर कॉलम्स पीरियडली रिजॉइस, folk is hip again. Influence artists, clothing, furniture, etc. celebrated music festivals, so on and so forth. तो जिसको हम बोलते हैं कि वो पुराना हो गया, उसको हम फिर से भी यूज कर सकते हैं. The pervasive influence of folk on contemporary art, culture and fashion. This does not relate floral prints to anything. B should be good, the right answer. That what was once derided as genteel. Derided is too strong. Derided मतलब हमने उसको नकार दिया. हमने बोला it's no good at all. Is now considered revolutionary also. We're not talking about revolutionary. This is misleading. Option C. D says that despite its archaic origins, folk continues to remain a popular tradition. Not really. It does not. What is once regarded as radical in folk can later be seen as conformist. Radical बोला ना हमने, parochial, conservative. Which of the following statements which of the following statements about folk revivalism of the 1940s and 1960s cannot be inferred from the passage? Freedom and rebellion were popular themes during the second wave of folk revivalism. We don't know that. Electrification of music would not have happened without the influence of rock music. Absolutely. Yes, recast and rock idioms. Electrification, however, comes in many forms. मतलब electrification हुआ rock की वजह से. B. Even though it led to folk rock's golden age, it wasn't entirely free from critique. ऐसा कहीं नहीं है. It reinforced Cecil Sharp's observation about folk's constant transformation. No, electrification specifically पूछा गया आपसे. राइट. हाँ जी गुनगुन, अब देखते हैं आपका ऑप्शन क्या बोल रहे हो. कौन सा वाला गुनगुन? आप क्वेश्चन नंबर तो बताओ. We don't know whether it's popular or not. Also, अगर ये पॉपुलर है भी तब भी विलियम मॉरिस के फ्लोरल प्रिंट से रिलेटेड नहीं है. क्वेश्चन इज William Morris and why are we discussing William Morris and floral prints? To draw out the similarity between rock music, which was considered old, but still was, adopted. Plurality and diversity. Plural क्या होता है? More than one. Diverse क्या होता है? Many facets. तो बोल रहे हैं इन सब में से सारे जितने ऑप्शंस हैं सब बताएंगे कि फोक म्यूजिक इतना डाइवर्स क्यों है या उसके एक से ज्यादा पहलू क्यों हैं. एक चीज ऐसी है जो नहीं बताएगी. पैराडॉक्सिकली बोथ फोक फॉर्म्स आर बोथ पॉपुलर एंड अनपॉपुलर. ठीक है, पॉपुलर है, अनपॉपुलर भी है. इससे ये कैसे पता चल रहा है कि वो प्लूरैलिटी या डाइवर्सिटी है? ऑप्शन ए बोल रहा है फ्लूइडिटी ऑफ फोक फॉर्म्स. फ्लूइडिटी मतलब आप उसको चेंज कर सकते हो, कैन ऑल्टर इट, एंड दैट्स व्हाई इट इज डाइवर्स. सी बोल रहा है कैन बी ट्रेस टू द रिमोट पास्ट ऑफ द कंट्री. इतना पुराना है कि वहां से यहां तक अब तक आएगा तो कुछ तो चेंज हो ही जाएगा. दैट्स व्हाई प्लूरैलिटी एंड डाइवर्सिटी. पेगन इन्फ्लुएंस मतलब देयर आर डार्क एलिमेंट्स टू फोक सॉन्ग्स एज वेल. इसीलिए तो जनरली सॉन्ग्स क्या होते हैं? पॉजिटिव, हैप्पी. ठीक है, हम यहाँ बोल रहे हैं पेगन इन्फ्लुएंस है मतलब डार्क इन्फ्लुएंस भी है, एंड दैट्स व्हाई इट लीड्स टू प्लूरैलिटी एंड डाइवर्सिटी. ओके, चलिए. टोपोफिलिया, छोटा पैसेज है. द फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन, टोपोफोबिया इन द पैसेज. Last paragraph, the author used the example of residents of upscale residential developments to illustrate that. Okay. Which one of the following best captures the meaning of the statement topophilia is difficult to design for and impossible to quantify? Which of the following comes closest in meaning to the author's understanding of topophilia? Okay. Which of the following statements, if true, could be seen as not contradicting the arguments in the passage? तो मतलब out of these four, three will be contradicting, one will not. Okay, let's read the passage, guys. Motif is a decorative design. Done? Okay. Let's see what the passage says. Let's read the passage first. So, passage says, topophilia. So, guys, you know, phil, Phil as a root word means to love. Phobe means to fear. So, phobia, philia, you can imagine. As defined by the geographer Yifu Town, topophilia is the effective bond between people and place. His 1974 book set forth a wide-ranging exploration of how the emotive ties with the material environment vary greatly from person to person and in intensity, subtlety, and mode of expression. Factors influencing one's depth of response to the environment include cultural background, gender, race, and historical circumstance. And Tuan also argued that there is biological and sensory element. Topophilia might not be the strongest of human emotions. Indeed, many people feel utterly indifferent toward the environmentalists that shape their lives. But when activated, it has the power to elevate a place to become the carrier of emotionally charged events or to be perceived as a symbol. Aesthetic appreciation is one way in which people respond to the environment. A brilliantly colored rainbow after gloomy afternoon showers, a busy street alive with human interaction, one might experience the beauty of such landscape that has seemed quite ordinary only moments before that are being newly discovered. This is quite the opposite of a second topophilic bond, namely that of acquired taste for certain landscapes and places that one knows well. तो acquired taste, एक तो है आपने देखा and you like, wow, this is an amazing place. ये एक जगह ऐसी है कि आप बार बार जा रहे हो and you start to like it. Acquired taste हो गया वो. When a place is home or when a space has become the locus of memories or the means of gaining a livelihood, it frequently evokes a deeper sense of attachments than those predicated purely on the visual. A third response to the environment also depends on the human sense but may be tactile and olfactory. Olfactory होता है related to smell. Tactile होता है something that you can touch. Namely a delight in the feel and smell of air, water and the earth. Topophilia and its very close conceptual sense of place is an experience that, however elusive, has inspired recent architects and planners. Most notably, new urbanism seeks to counter the perceived placelessness of modern suburbs and the decline of central cities through neo-traditional design motifs. Although motivated by good intentions, such attempts to create places rich in meaning are perhaps bound to disappoint. As Tuan noted, purely aesthetic responses often are subtly revealed, but the intensity rarely is long lasting. Rarely is long lasting. नई नई जगह बन रही है लेकिन वो इतने ज़्यादा imprint नहीं होती memory में जैसे पहले हुआ करती थी. Topophilia is difficult to design for and impossible to quantify, and its more articulate interpreters have been self-respective philosophers such as Henry David Thoreau, evoking a marvelously intricate sense of a place at Walden Pond, and Tuan describing his deep affinity for the desert. Topophilia connotes a positive relationship, but it often is used to explore the darker affiliations between people and place. Patriotism, literally meaning the love of one's terra patria or homeland, has long been cultivated by governing elites for a range of nationalist projects including war preparation and ethnic cleansing. Guys, I know you understand what this means, ethnic cleansing, war preparation, ISIS हो गया, Hitler for that matter. वो patriotic तो था, he was a true nationalist, but he evoked people for war. Residents of upscale residential developments have disclosed how important it is to maintain their community's distinct identity, often by casting themselves in a superior social position and by reinforcing class and radical differences. जो अच्छे रेजिडेंशियल लोकेशन में रहते हैं उनको दिखाना है कि हाँ हम सुपीरियर हैं. And just as beloved landscape is suddenly revealed, so too many landscapes of fear cast a dark shadow over a place that makes one feel a sense of dread or anxiety or topophobia. I think pretty simple passage, relatively simple passage last wale se to. If I talk about the questions, the first one is the word topophobia in the passage is used. Why is it used? To represent a feeling of dread towards particular spaces. Topophobia, I think simple hai. A towards the last line. As a metaphor expressing the failure of the homeland, not the failure. To signify the fear of studying the complex discipline, not really. To signify feelings of fear and anxiety towards topophilic people. All these three are misleading. Clearly A. In the last paragraph, the author uses the example of upscale residential developments to illustrate the introduction of nationalist projects by such elites, not really. Manner in which environments are designed to minimize the social exclusion, no. Sensitive response to race and class problems in upscale residential. Sensitive response नहीं है. Sensitive response होता तो वो अपने आप को superior नहीं दिखाते. Social exclusivism कि भाई हम elite हैं, we are the elite, practiced by such residents in order to enforce a sense of racial or class superiority. Clearly D. Which one of the following best captures the meaning of the statement topophilia is difficult to design for and impossible to quantify? Philosopher architects are uniquely suited to develop topophilic design, not really. People's responses to the environment are usually subjective, तो आप define नहीं कर सकते उनको, and cannot be rendered in design, तो आप quantify नहीं कर सकते उनको, and design भी नहीं कर सकते. Exactly. So B is the best answer. C says architects have to objectively quantify spaces and hence cannot be topophilic. The deep enemy of modern urbanization, enemy is discomfort. Modern urbanization led to new urbanism, intricate sense of place. Option B. Which one of the following comes closest in meanings to the understanding of author's topophilia? The French are not overly patriotic, but they will refuse to use English. No. The tendency of many cultures to represent their land as motherland or fatherland. Exactly. Fatherland सिर्फ एक ही country है, Germany, right? तो हम उनको बोलते हैं we are so attached to that place that we call it a motherland or fatherland. Topophilia. B should be good. C says scientists have found that most creatures, including humans, are either born with or cultivate a strong sense of topography. Topography तो बिल्कुल ही अलग हो गया. Topography is when you talk about relief features, पहाड़ वगैरह. Nomadic societies are known to have the least affinity for the lands through which they traverse because they tend to be topophobic, not really. So B is the best answer. I think this is a relatively simple passage, relatively simple answers as well. Which one of the following statements, if true, could be seen as not contradicting the argument in the passage? Generally speaking, in a given culture, the ties of people to the environment vary little in significance or intensity. Little मतलब बहुत कम. ऐसा नहीं है. They actually vary a lot in significance and intensity. So this is actually contradicting the argument in the passage. Patriotism, usually seen as positive feelings, is presented by the author as a darker form of topophilia. Sorry. Generally speaking, in a given culture, the ties of people to the environment vary little in significance or intensity. Yes, ज़्यादा variance नहीं होता है क्योंकि आपको उतनी जगह उतनी ही अच्छी लगती है. Patriotism, usually seen as a positive feeling, if is presented by the author as a darker form of topophilia. No, the author is not saying that patriotism is a darker form of topophilia. The author is saying that people can use patriotism for other ulterior motives which can be dark. Patriotism itself is not dark. New urbanism succeeded in those designs where architects collaborated with their clients. No, it did not succeed. The most important, even fundamental response to our environment is our tactile and olfactory. It says most important. ऐसा जरूरी नहीं है कि ये most important होगा इस. misleading, आंसर इज बी। ये थोड़ा ट्रिकी क्वेश्चन था। So I would say all in all 2019 verbal section, I would RC at least I would say not an easy section, relatively difficult है ये, ठीक है। Don't worry about अगर कुछ नहीं आया तो इतना सोचने की जरूरत नहीं है, सब कुछ नहीं आ सकता। What we are here to see is how best to approach these, okay? I will see you tomorrow guys, same time 7 o'clock, we'll be taking up 2019 RC slot 2, okay? Take care, Jai Shri Ram.